Hello, this is Robin Johnson. I'm the Director of Volunteer Engagement at FiftyForward, and I'm here today to do a book review of a book I recently read during the quarantine called Parnassus on Wheels by Christopher Morley. Like many of you, um, I've used this time to kind of peruse my bookshelves and see what's there that I haven't read or to reread some favorites again. And I came across this little book that my neighbor Carrie gave to me a year or so ago because she thought I would enjoy it. It got set aside, and probably because it's orange and maybe didn't have a picture on the front, maybe I was judging the book by the cover, but I set it aside and hadn't read it yet. So when I came across it a few weeks ago, I thought that this short, sweet book would be perfect during this really busy time. Because in addition to the work I do at FiftyForward, I'm in the process of downsizing and I've moved to a new home, so I've been a little busy. So a short book was just the ticket. Um, I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I love having friends who recommend books to me and share books with me. It's why I still buy lots of hard copies of books so that I can share them with my friends. So I really appreciate Carrie sharing this book with me. Most of you are probably familiar with Mount Parnassus from Greek mythology. It was the home of the Muses, and therefore it was the center of poetry, music, and learning. So that is the reference to Parnassus in this book. And of course, we're all familiar with our own Parnassus here in Nashville, the wonderful independent bookstore in Green Hills. So in this book, Parnassus on Wheels, the main character is a lovely woman named Helen McGill. She and her brother Andrew had been living together rather happily in a farmhouse up until the time that Andrew became a somewhat celebrated author. Well, according to Helen, Andrew began to put on airs and started to take literary vacations where he would travel across the countryside talking about his books, leaving Helen home to bake bread. There's a lot of talk about baking bread in this book and Helen's dislike of baking bread. So Helen was feeling a little dissatisfied, and I think we can all during this time relate to what it must feel like to kind of be stuck at home. And she also wasn't feeling very appreciated. So on the day that this book starts, Helen, of course, is at home in the kitchen while Andrew is out running an errand. And I'm going to read to you an excerpt from the very beginning of the book to kind of set the stage of what happens when the Parnassus on wheels rolls up to Helen's house. It was a fine, crisp morning in fall, October, I dare say, and I was in the kitchen coring apples for applesauce. We were going to have roast pork for dinner with boiled potatoes and what Andrew calls Van Dyke brown gravy. Andrew had driven over to town to get some flour and feed and wouldn't be back till noontime. Being a Monday, Mrs. McNally, the washerwoman, had come over to take care of the washing. I remember I was just on my way out to the woodpile for a few sticks of birch when I heard wheels turn in at the gate. There was one of the fattest white horses I ever saw, and a strange wagon shaped like a van. A funny-looking little man with a red beard leaned forward from the seat and said something. I didn't hear what it was. I was looking at that preposterous wagon of his. It was colored a pale robin's egg blue, and on the side, in big scarlet letters, was painted R. Mifflin's Traveling Parnassus. Good books for sale. Shakespeare, Charles Lamb, R.L.S. Hazlitt, and all others. Underneath the wagon, in slings, hung what looked like a tent, together with a lantern, a bucket, and other small things. The van had a raised skylight on the roof, something like an old-fashioned trolley car, and from one corner went up a stovepipe. At the back was a door with little windows on each side and a flight of steps leading up to it. So this is how the traveling Parnassus rolled up to Helen's house. You might be able to tell from the way this is written. This book was written quite a while ago, 1917, but the story is pretty timeless. So, of course, Mr. Mifflin was not there to see Helen. He was there to see her brother Andrew because Mr. Mifflin had decided to retire and he wanted to move to Brooklyn, which is his beloved home place, and he was going to go to Brooklyn and write a book about his travels with Parnassus. So he had decided that as an author, Andrew was the person to buy Parnassus and continue to spread the gospel of good books across the countryside. Well, Helen, hearing this, was definitely fearful that Andrew would think this is a wonderful idea and take off on an adventure, leaving her home to bake more bread. So Helen took a leap of faith and did something pretty remarkable. She found her savings, and she decided to buy the traveling Parnassus for herself. So the plan was Mr. Mifflin was going to help teach her how to sell the books, and she was going to take him to a train station, and he would go back to his beloved Brooklyn. Well, as you can imagine, this is not exactly the way things turned out. So, what ensues is a delightful tale of their travels across the countryside, some adventures, a few misadventures, but nothing too misadventurous. And then it comes to a delightful conclusion. I would really recommend reading this book if you enjoy stories about traveling the countryside, and if you enjoy books. Helen is a wonderful character. It is actually quite unusual in 1917 to have a book told from a woman's perspective, so I really enjoyed that, and I think you will too. If you'd like to purchase this book, you can do so, of course, at Parnassus, and they will deliver it to you or mail it to you. You can go pick it up curbside, I think. They have copies at the public library when we're able to go back to the library, and you can also access it via their Hoopla system. I'm not familiar with that system, but I think Brandy at Madison Station is. She can tell you about it. You can also order it from Amazon. Get it for 99 cents on a Kindle or free with an Audible subscription. And if you don't use Audible, I'd recommend that because a lot of people really enjoy listening to books that way. So I hope you've enjoyed hearing a little bit about this book, Parnassus on Wheels. I certainly enjoyed reading it and talking to you about it. Please share what you've been reading during the quarantine in the comments section, and maybe we can have a Zoom book club in a future time at FiftyForward. Thank you so much and have a great day. Bye-bye.